Panditarama Tosakayita Yipong Shause Tadivitang Bauna Tiasakama Nengadagaga Lavido Atujade Yogi Mia Yipong Shause Long Wally Atudeka Nimiri Bawa Amia Below trade all the layers Ravoli Day-52 lower Day-52 nearly or Nizin lower Kilida a Jan and Kilida Picumia on Tilotica, Moditica, Pinateca, take her don't yet a piece of forget about it. Tilotica, Kaitan piece on that way. Juju Sozo Gaga, Chana and Kilitari Nida, Nida, that is Tishara. Magali Tamanetama Sissa Video Abila Lucy Sitema Pinheim, Priotana Gilitari, Tarele Piquimia Pila Lucy, Eleva Shumania. Mahasi Sayadaw Kajaro Pipi Cheno Mata Karatira Segli Tropo Gombularama Dia Maga Chemi Omieta Pena Yona Panjadi was a season Lady Point Lion Uriabia Yabailo Yodeka The eye swear Ajo Yogi Yamapiano Piodora Kamago Tutate Lunati Bully or Kamago Chanda de Sabomazwa Tolone Chanda Tuatrio Go Tiji Kazanija Kamago Chanda Hamatim Giro Tia Atulu Pipiago, Timmy, Yamba Yode Kama. People let Chandagama Tambu Mapshane or Imanago Pusia Kone Yada Ve Suravoli Yogiga Letri Konguna Ledware Ediga Jalusi Yogi Puri Levetorally Api Ladapara.
At the Panditarama Forest Meditation Center, the yogis who have come from all over to practice in this 60-day Satipatthana Bhavana retreat, those who have practiced a full 60 days should have a way to measure the benefit that one has gotten for one's life, the profit that one has made on one's life. Sayadawgyi spoke about the method of measuring this. He talked about how to develop the trainings in order to dispel the gross kilesas, the medium kilesas, and the refined kilesas. And if one practices to completion, and the very gross kilesas are then eliminated, they die down, then that is the farthest stage to go to. But when one's noting is continuous, moment after moment, then the obsessive kilesas are destroyed. They have no chance to arise. And if they do arise, one observes them and then dispels them. So at that time, one is able to observe the kilesas as soon as they arise, even before the mind starts to wander, when the mind is just about start to wander, one can observe. And knowledge arises stage by stage. At the stage of Udiyabbiya Jnana, seeing the fast arising and passing away of phenomena, the Dhamma pulls one along. One is pulled by the Dhamma, and one is no longer bored with the practice. So the happiness that one experiences at that stage is far better than the happiness of the Deva realms. And because of that, one no longer thinks highly of the pleasures that one used to enjoy. And at this stage, the taste of the Dhamma is very pleasant to the yogis. So at that stage, the yogi's faith becomes quite strong.
Udiyabbiya Jnanaလောက်ရောက်လာလို့ရှိရင်ကိုယ့်ဘဝကိုပေါ့လေဆုံးဖြတ်ချက်ချလို့ရပါတယ်ရှေ့ဆက်လို့ရှိရင်အနည်းဆုံးဖြူစင်သန့်ရှင်းတဲ့သောတပန်အဆင်းလို့တော့မကြခင်ရောက်နိုင်တယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီတတ္တတရားမျိုးအတိမောက္ခလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်ဒီမှာသုံးထားတာဆုံးဖြတ်ချက်ချလိုက်တာပေါ့လေဒီမောက္ခငါအရင်နဲ့မတူဘူးတရားသဘောလေးတွေသိမြင်လာတော့ဖြစ်ခိုက်ချွတ်လို့ချီယုံနာကြောင်းကျိုးဆက်ပုံတွေပေါ်မှာအခုဖြစ်ပြီးတော့အခုပဲပြတ်သွားတယ်အဟောင်းပြည့်အသစ်ဆက်အဟောင်းပြည့်အသစ်ဆက်ခုဝင်ဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ခုဝင်ပြတ်သွားတယ်ဆိုတာငါကိုယ်တိုင်သိရပြီဆိုတာပေါ့လေအသိဉာဏ်နဲ့လက်ခံလိုက်တာပဲဆုံးဖြတ်ချက်ချလိုက်တာပဲအဲ့ဒါဩဃပနတ္တခေါ်ပါတယ်ဆုံးဖြတ်ချက်ချတာတဲ့ကိုယ်တွေ့မကြုံသေးဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဆုံးဖြတ်ချက်ချတဲ့တတ္တတရားမပေါ်သေးပါဘူးဒီလိုပါပဲသူလိုကိုလိုပါပဲအထူးအဖြစ်တော့ကိုထိမ့်သိမ်းဆောက်ရှောက်နိုင်တဲ့စွမ်းအားကြီးကလည်းပဲဒီဘက်ရောက်လာလို့ရှိရင်အဝဲခေါင်းလောက်ဖြစ်လာတာယုံကြည်စွမ်းအားတတ္တဗလဆိုတာတွေပါလေဝိရိယစွမ်းအားရဲရဲနဲ့စွမ်းအားတွေအကျင့်စိုးတွေကိုရှောင်ရတဲ့တတ္တိတွေမားလို့ရှိရင်လည်းဝန်ခံရတဲ့တတ္တိတွေအကျင့်ကောင်းတွေကိုလုံရတဲ့တတ္တိတွေရှေ့တိုးရတဲ့တတ္တိတွေလည်းသိကောင်းလာတာတတ္တဝိရိယကောင်းသလောက်ပေါ့လေနောက်ပိုင်းကတတိယလည်းပဲအသေးအဖွဲလေးတွေအစပေါ့လေမလွတ်တမ်းမှန်နေလာပဲလွတ်လည်းချက်ချင်းလွတ်မှသိတယ်အထူးသဖြင့်အမှန်တရားမြန်ဆန်တဲ့စိတ်ကလေးတွေကိုယ်မှာတစီပိတစီဖြစ်နေတာလည်းသိတယ်အဲလိုအထူးသတိထားနေတော့ထွက်သွားတာလည်းသိတယ်ချက်ချင်းထွက်သွားတာလည်းသတိထားမိတာပဲတတိယသိကောင်းလာတယ်တတိပလဆိုတာတတိစွမ်းအားတွေလည်းကောင်းလာတာတတိစွမ်းအားကောင်းတယ်လို့အသေးပွဲအာယုံလေးတွေကအစပေါ့လေအဲဒါမှတခဏစိတ်ကြနေတာဓမ္မရိယာလည်းထူးခြားကောင်းလာပဲအသေးပွဲယုံနာသဘာဝတွေမှာစိုက်ကြတိုင်းပိုက်ချသိမြင်တဲ့ပညာဗလာတဲ့အဲဒီလည်းစွမ်းသိကောင်းလာတာဗလာ၅မျိုးပေါ့လေစွမ်းရင်၅မျိုးယုံကြည်စွမ်းအားရဲရင်စွမ်းအားရှုမှတ်စွမ်းအားတည်ငြိမ်မှုစွမ်းအားပိုက်ချသိမြင်မှုစွမ်းအားစွမ်းရည်သိကောင်းလာအဲဒီစွမ်းရည်ကောင်းလာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကိုယ်စိတ်ကိုထိ ंछ ချုပ်နိုင်တယ်ကိုယ်ဘဝကိုလည်းပဲထိ ंछ ချုပ်နိုင်တယ်ဒီအားတွေကောင်းလာတော့ထိ ंछ ချုပ်နိုင်စွမ်းကြီးစိုးစွမ်းအားတွေကောင်းလာပြီကို Jesus Swami Kong la Kazama Savido Coco Site Maro, Yamuri Mapio. Take this social dava. Later, Kara, Jesus Nene, I. The Ari Pidalo, Jesus Nene Swami Pillar. The theatre de Sora Coco, and now you go to that was the count Nalia power. Coco, 9 years old, I think you left it of Chizovi. Pero Dunya leve Chinata Tovi, Nyatata Tovi. Hello, Singing deep in your they count at there. Go to that feather, because it's seen one hour. Malolaro Nanele Dunya Tito is a chair. China the Namu Lepsela. Era Lulogama, Emina Luate Lugondo ye chin, ye chin on the Kuba, era they ye.
If one reaches the stage of Udyabhyajnana, the stage of seeing the fast arising and passing away of phenomena, then one can decide for one's life. If one continues to practice, one can arrive before long, at least at the stage of Arya, the very pure, noble path knowledge. So the faith that arises at this time is called adimaka. It is decisive faith or confirmed faith. So one is able to see the Dhamma of Nama and Rupa, mind and matter, related as cause and effect, arising and passing away very quickly. The old always being replaced by the new again and again. Well, just now it arises and then it immediately passes away. So because of this knowledge, one is able to come to a decision, and one's faith becomes decisive. And this is called, in Pali, Okappana sada. So when one has not yet seen for oneself and in oneself, then one cannot yet decide. But especially at this stage, the ruling power of faith, the ruling faculty of faith, is very strong. The power of faith becomes powerful. And so too, virya, or effort, one has the power of courage, the courage to avoid doing wrong, and the courage to admit what one has done wrong, one's faults, and the courage also to do what is good. To the extent that faith and effort, saddha and virya, are good, then sati also is good. And the observing power of sati is very good. It can observe even small, tiny things. Especially one can... the sati is able to observe very subtle levels of kilesas, the basis type of thing that can happen in the mind. And also, as the very moment the mind starts to wander. Because the power of sati is good, the mind falls collectedly on the object one moment after another. One object after another, and thus the power of samadhi is very good. Because of the collectedness of the mind, the power of knowledge also becomes good. Panya. So these 5 powers, faith, courage, the power of observation, the power of stability, and the power of discerning wisdom. If these are good, then one is able to control one's mind, and one can rule one's life. When the ruling faculties are good, so because of this, the strength of the ruling faculties, one is able to control oneself so that one doesn't err. And to the extent of one's faith, to the extent faith is powerful, the other powers become strong. So one has the power to master oneself. And this is what the practice is for, to learn how to master oneself, to gain mastery of oneself. And so one not only is able to do this, but one also gains feeling for other people. One understands is very well how others feel, and one no longer wants to cause others any type of trouble at all. And even the little bit, even harming someone or something in a very small way, one feels a lot of empathy for the person. So this is very much needed in the world. This quality, this is one of the qualities of a good person.
Di uriya piyamai phit la de akha ma pitiပေါ့လေဖရဏဥပ္ပေကပီတိဖရဏပီတိဆိုတာပေါ့လေဘလောပီတိတွေအမှန်ကိုအားကောင်းတဲ့ပီတိတွေလည်းဖြစ်လာတတ်ပါတယ်မိခန္ဓာကိုယ်ကြီးအပေါ်ကြွပြီးတော့ပေါ်တက်နေတယ်လို့ပေါ့လေအောက်ကချီနဲ့အောက်ချီနဲ့လွတ်ပြီးတော့ဒီကုလုံးခါတဲ့စိတ်ဖြာပြီးတော့နေလို့ထိုင်လို့လည်းကောင်းနေတော့ဖရဏပီတိတွေအာရုံဖြစ်တော့ပီတိတွေဖြစ်တော့ကိုယ်စိတ်ပါအေးချမ်းတဲ့ပစ္စတိတို့ပေါ်ပါတာလို့စသည်ဒါတွေလည်းအကုန်လုံးပေါ်လာတာကိုယ်ချမ်းသာစိတ်ချမ်းသာတွေဖြစ်လာတာသုခဆိုတာဒါတွေဖြစ်လာတာအဲဒီလူတော်ဥရိယပြညင်ပိုင်းမှာတော့အဲ့ဒါတွေကအာကောင်းသူတို့ကလွှမ်းမိုးနေတာဧကကရာခေါ်တဲ့သမာဓိကသူတို့နဲ့ရောနေတော့တိတ်ပြီးတော့စူးစိုက်မှုအာမကောင်းလာဘူးစိတ်ရှုလို့ဖြစ်ပျက်ကလေးကိုခတ်တွတ်ပြီးတွေ့ရပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ဆရာကြီးလည်းဟောပြလို့ပေါ့လေတစ်ကောင်းတာတွေအများကြီးရှိပါသေးတယ်ဆိုတော့ပြတော့ပီတိတို့ပစ္စတိတို့ကိုပေါ်ပါတာတို့စသည်ပေါ့လေဒုက္ခတွေအဲ့ဒါတွေပေါ်မလာတော့ဘူးတမာရီကလည်းပဲအဲ့ဒီပီတိပစ္စတိဒုက္ခနဲ့လွတ်သွားတော့ပို့ပြီးတော့တည်ငြိမ်မှုအားတွေကောင်းလာတယ်ဧကိကတာဆိုတာပေါ့လေအသေးသေးပေါ်ရအာယုံမှာအသေးဘွယ်လေးတွေအစပေါ့လေစက်ကလေးခါလေးကြာနေတာအဲ့ဒီကကြာလို့ရှိရင်ပေါ်မြအာယုံတွေပေါ်မှာပေါ့လေဘယ်မြတ်စွာထားနိုင်တဲ့ဥပေက္ခာဆိုတာတတ္တရုမစ္ဆာတတ္တမစ္ဆတုဥပေက္ခာဆိုတာပေါ်လာတာအဲ့ဒါမှာသမာဓိနဲ့တတ္တရမစ္ဆတုဥပေက္ခာပေါ့လေဥပေက္ခာခေါ်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီနှစ်ခုပဲရှိတော့တာပဲတိတ်ပြီးတော့ကိုငြိမ်သက်အေးချမ်းချမ်းလေးခါတော့မှတ်နိုင်လာတဲ့အပိုင်းရောက်လာတော့ပဲအဲ့ဒီပိုင်းရောက်သွားပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ရင်တော်ဥရိယပြညာပိုင်းရောက်သွားတဲ့အခါမှာပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီချမ်းသာကလည်းတစ်မျိုးပဲသူကတော့တည်ငြိမ်တဲ့ချမ်းသာပေါ့လေသူချမ်းသာကငြိမ်ကောင်းတဲ့ချမ်းသာစတာပေါ့လေဒီလိုထိုင်လို့ကောင်းတာကသူကတော့ပီတိတွေဖြစ်လာတဲ့အခါမှာစိတ်ကလေးဆိုတော့ပေါ့လေငြိမ်ကလေးကောင်းတာပေါ့ငြိမ်ကလေးကောင်းတာလှုပ်ရှားလေးအဲ့ဒါပီတိအကောင်းပြောပါလား ကိုယ်ထဲမှာစိတ်ပြီးတော့သန္တာမာနဆိုတာပေါ့လေအဲ့တဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာလေးကန်းနဲ့ဝင်ပြီးနေလိုက်တဲ့အခါမှာအေးတတ်ဒီကိုယ်ထဲမှာစိတ်ပြီးတော့ဝင်လာတာစိတ်ပြီးတော့ကောင်းနေတော့အဲ့ဒါဒုက္ခကောင်းရင်တော့ဥရိယပြဉာဏ်ပဲရောက်သွားတဲ့အခါကျတော့ညီကောင်းလေးစလာတာပဲတက်တောင့်တက်တာလေးဇာကနဲ့လှုပ်ရှားတာလည်းမရှိဘူးဒေါသနဲ့လှုပ်ရှားတာလည်းမရှိဘူးအမှတ်တရတစ်ခုနဲ့တစ်ခုတိမ်တိမ်ဝိုးလေးတွေကစကြတော့မှတ်နေတာရိတ်ခလဲပေါ်ရိတ်ခလဲပြောက်ခတ်တွတ်တွတ်လေးပေါ်လေးအိန္ဒိယရလေးသိလာတာပဲဒီမှာငြိမ်ကောင်းလေးစလာတယ်အဲ့ဒီငြိမ်ကောင်းကရှေ့ပိုင်းကငြိမ်ကောင်းစိတ်ကောင်းနဲ့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပိုကောင်းတယ်ပိဋိတွေဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ကောင်းတာနဲ့ချမ်းသာတွေပတ္တတိဒုက္ခတွေဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ချမ်းသာတာလေအဲ့ဒီငြိမ်ပြီးတော့ကောင်းနေတဲ့အကောင်းလေးကပို့ပြီးတော့အိန္ဒိယရတယ်ပိုကောင်းတယ်သူကတော့
When at the stage of Udiyabhya Jnana, the quality of piti, strong rapture, both Obeka piti and Farana piti arise, and this feels very good. So, for example, one feels like one is no longer standing on the ground. One doesn't have anything beneath one, but the body feels like it's being elevated. Or one feels that joy is just pervading through all one's cells. So this is the type of rapture that one feels. And because of this rapture, or piti, there comes tranquility of body and mind, passaddhi. And one's body feels light and gentle and so on, together with the tranquility. And then the quality of happiness, sukha. So at this time, the quality of one-pointedness, ekagata, or samadhi, is mixed together with sukha and piti, the happiness and rapture. So it is not very strong at this point. But the teachers tell the yogis there are better things to come. So when the yogis continue to practice, what happens is the piti, the rapture or joyous interest, tranquility, and sukha, happiness, these fade away and they don't come back. So at that point the mind is more stable than before. The quality of ekagata, or one-pointedness, is better. And the mind is able to be collected on even very small objects, very minute objects. And at that point, the quality of equanimity, tatra majjhatupeka, arises. So these two factors are what remained, the concentration of samadhi and also equanimity, tatra majjhatupeka. And at that time, the mind is very still and calm. So this is a very stable, quiet type of peace that happens at this stage. And the types of things which were experienced before, for example, when rapture is arising, it feels kind of springy or bouncy, it's a bit active. And this is what is good about rapture. And the quality of sukha is as though it just seeps through one's whole body like the cool air of an air conditioning. So this too is also a good feeling. And as one continues to observe, there's no movement of the mind due to raga or dosa. So the mind is very still. And this type of stillness is even better than the qualities that were good before, this bouncy quality that felt good with rapture and this pervading quality that was experienced with sukha.
Eri Yangon chanda le sa po la de kha ja do Buddha Myat Swaga era ko gong pyu tha ba Amanusi rati hoti Amanuti Lu kam gong chanda ko chaw lon twa de Lu loka ma so lo shin lu da ri ha Kama ye tana aya ba li kama bu ma phit da ma lo Kama dana hluang mo ni do A mye kaung ja kaung nan kaung ya da kaung thi twai kaung khaw de Di ayon ni chait ja de Chait da lo lai pi so lo chi yin edi kam kaung ni ka lai de pukkol ko ba ma khwa ya aung phan sa tha lo da ba Ai da ko Pali lo kama kuna lo khaw ba da Ma khwa do Di kama kaung chanda da a kaung song lo thin mat pi do swai ni de pukkol ya do Khwa lo ma ya do da kha le ko Tu chait de kama kaung ka Da kha le ko tu ko phan sa tha da bo le da ma Ai da lo so ba de So lu ri chait song phit de lu kam kaung chanda ko chaw twa de Ai da Amanuti lo gong pyu tha ba de Rati Sei kaung de ti nya to de lo ma pi ye nai ne a pyaw myo de a pyaw myo taku paw la de Paw la da ma phit phit paw la da ma ho a shai hong ne paw la da Chit chin ta kha le ko phit phit a shai hong ne paw la da Ai da lo gong pyu tha ba de ma
This calm happiness was described by the Buddha as amanusi riti hoti. This means that this delight surpasses that of the human realm. So, because we are beings that live in the world of the senses, we tend to like to see good things, hear good things, smell, taste, touch good things. And these things which we like, they capture us, they captivate the one who likes them. And thus they are called kama guna. They're desirable things which bind us. And one is not able to separate oneself from the thing. What one likes tends to captivate the one who likes it. So, in the practice, though, at this stage, one goes beyond that type of pleasure. The delight that one experiences is called amanusi. So this is beyond the pleasure of the senses. Rati means a delight. This is a delight that arises with momentum. And this is how the happiness of this stage is praised by the Buddha.
Vipassana phita lo so do Samma Dhamma vipassana lo so tha ba de Ko de ka shu kwet yau na ayon ni paw dain Dhamma khaw ba de Shu kwin ayon ni ko Shu mi dai shu ne be do le paw pi do pyauk twa da le Ni lan ja ka le a man twai la da be da ma Yik khle pyauk aku bi phit pi do aku bi piet twa da le de Khat twat ti myin ne yogi ma de ai da de ma phit tat de
So, in whom does this delight arise? It is said, samma dhammang vipassato. It arises in one who is observing Dhamma, that is, every object that arises in one. Because one observes, one sees the object arising and passing away very quickly. One is practicing according to the method, and thus one sees accurately. So this pleasure arises in one who sees the Dhamma by practicing systematically. One who observes like that systematically, seeing the nama and rupa which are related as cause and effect that arise in one, is called jai. This is one who observes whatever arises at the 6 sense doors, one after another, always observing, and so that the mindfulness sticks with the object. Santa Cheta. This is when one observes in this way, there's nothing to take pleasure in. There's nothing to get angry at. There's nothing to doubt about, because one is seeing how the mind and matter arise and then pass away moment after moment in a very fast way. So at this time, raga, or lust, which grasps on to the object, dies down, and anger dies down, because one knows clearly there's no doubt, no ignorance. So the kilesas, gross, medium, and refined, the kilesas of lobha, dosa, and moha, greed, hatred, and delusion, are being stilled, and they die down. So there's no movement here. The mind is peaceful. And in such a person, this type of happiness that is beyond human pleasures arises.
Sunyagara Boita. Sunyagara Sura, Ludan Susan Kimere, singing in the Yatana, Atosa Maradia, Nia Yuva. Lutan Sudan Kenya Milo singing in Niyama. Twayo Niyama, Adama Capital Niva, Adama Canevilo, Korea Podmiari, Porai, Malutan Shuba, Malutan Shuna Luce, Yagasaji Kilitari, Luxamuri, Nidebilo Valley. Since Yanlady Pueblo Nazo, a cheap jago catote, Timmy like that, Eddie Payoloshi, on the Amandu, the tea horty to the body. Look up go Chanda, a Savonas or Tare. Sikona Di and Dodelu, Mapia and Hanya to make on a pure mule, here a ball of a Eddie Pano Yogalishi, Yogiga, Mapiano, who, a Lulu, Mati sailor of it. Eddie by my yoga miar, deliver a pin to need a low lam you did the lamb, Tainta, Guisa, Lujari, Purita, Tonki, Milkina, Chida. Either low lily, a maga jedo lily, a majedo lily, Kuna Chai Suravali, Podmia, Lota Mayam, so there. A chin level yoga. A yoga, Yagan Lucha, Dodan Lucha, a duty, Miavi over La Roda, a duty, Miavi, La Lucia, Nyamshipo, where SADHU to one jedo. Hedelo Solochi, Amanu did a tea horty to a volley. Lucamago Chandari, a Savomis or Tare, a pure mule volley, with Wavi Sicone Dina. Total la moto, Mapia and a pure Miaro, like the little.
In order to get special knowledge, the Buddha specified that one should enter a secluded place, Sunyagara Poweta. So Sunyagara is a place that is is relatively secluded, free of human sounds. And one should enter and stay in such a place. And when one is there, one should observe every arising object in one's being. And when one observes in this way, knowledge develops stage by stage until one comes to see the fast arising and passing away of phenomena. At that stage, one experiences a pleasure that is far better than any type of pleasure in the human or deva realms. It is a pleasure that is unrelinquishable, that never gets old. Amanusi riti hoti. So at this point, one is no longer bored with the practice. One's observation automatically becomes continuous because of one's interest. But this only happens for yogis who are respectful in their work, respectful and meticulous. If one performs actions such as bending and stretching carelessly, quickly, if one looks here and there, is looking all over the place, then one's practice, one's mind does not become collected. One cannot be described as jai, making this steady observation moment by moment. One's practice deteriorates. And then, because one's notings are not continuous, then kilesas are sure to enter. So, at that point, one loses one's purity of mind, chitta visuddhi, and the pleasure, amanusi riti, that is described as far better than any type of happiness of the human world or deva worlds. This pleasure is very far away. One will no longer get this unrelinquishable happiness.
The little book of yoga, yes, of Yaga, the moon at Tupia Tower. Keep you go to when you men come go never change go middle. ချိန်ဖြုံးနေတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ရဲ့အသက်တရားရှိရတာတဲ့ခုလိုစိတ်ညစ်တဲ့ရိတ်တံမျိုးမှာလာပြီးတော့ဗောလေဘုရားညွှန်ကြားတဲ့အတိုင်းယူတည်တည်စိတ်ဆက်ဆက်အစမပြရှုလို့ဗောလေရာဂရောဓာတွေမလှရှားပဲငြိမ်သက်ပြီးတော့အထူးအဖြစ်ဥဒိယပြညာဘဲလို့ရောက်လာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်မပြည့်တဲ့တဲ့အပျော်မှုမျိုးပေါ်ပြီးပေါ်တဲ့အထိဥဒိယပြညာဘဲရောက်သွားတာတရက်တာလေးအသက်ရှင်ရတာကသူကပူပြီးတော့မြင့်မြတ်ပါတယ်တဲ့ကိုပြီးတော့အဆင့်မြင့်ပါတယ်တဲ့အဲလိုမြတ်စွာဘုရားကတိုက်ရိုက်ဟောထားပါတယ်ပြီးတော့ဒီမှာအရက်60စကားလာပြီးတော့အထုတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဟာမိမိဘဝတောင်ဖို့ဘယ်အဆင့်အထိရှိသွားပါလဲဆိုတာပေါ့လေခန့်မှန်းနေအောင်လို့မြတ်စွာဘုရားဟောထားတဲ့တိုက်တာတဲ့နီးလေးပေါ့လေအဲဒါလည်းဒီနေ့ပြောပြပါမယ်
Better than 100 years of living without seeing the arising and passing away of phenomena, just wasting one's time with sense pleasures. Better than 100 years of living like that is just one day in the life of someone who does as the yogis do, coming to a center like this and observing what arises in their being, especially when one reaches the stage of Udiyabhya Jnana. This one day in the life of one who experiences in this way is better, is higher than 100 years in the life of one who never sees like this. This is what the Buddha said directly. And those who have come here to this 60-day retreat so that they can see to what extent they have gained a benefit for their life. Sayadawgyi will speak today about how to measure this, how to measure the benefit that has been gained.
Yoja Vasasadan Jiwe Apasan Udiyabhyana Don't you say Yona Diari, Chipyako Khatate Matimi Veneboli Udiyabhyana Maya Vene Letri Maya Veneboli, Atatia Shady de Elusovara Tijara Tila Alemichibu Surabo Atinya Michibu Sure Sugarega Duaro Saint Yamhu, the Marilem Shibu Sura Table Yavara Tila later to change Shimawali the Romania Sura Tila Bamshiro a Janza Grita on Yazin and a Tila Lemachi Saint Yam below the Marilemachi Atinya Lemachi Atinya Nimero Aro took by it, Damalo, a few Piaco, cut with that Mati Veneboli, a chain commuter, tread water, yogi. It a merely power. A few Piaco, Miamene, that way out of Miamene, that you are shady to the Igahan, Jibutan, your Passato Udiyabhyana, Gulu Tributan in a Shulu. Keep Jago Katoto Timine Bogoye. Dietali at the Shiara Ha, Kuna Sozavanga Yoga at Timoli, keep them Yumene, at that year Shira Bogode, Talumia Pare, Nasavia Sumbia Pitare. Keep Yen of Shamamim Bave, they are at the Shidi Telly. Keep Yen Neha Yonin Nango. Mamyale Nyansin Telly, the Damia Teshayado, Loga Luya Comyata, the Meswa Buddha, Megoni, El Mesofia Majava, Udamalaya Vida, Ye 60 Sakam Havoli, Chuleve Tala, Chuleve Chowse, Chuleve Nala Jodo in the Tuvare. A good joy, Harley, a tight chibo. Tight Jiluchi, Koguro Tibare, Todo Koguro Manyaya. You than a tight Gia. Portolumia, Lily Netted had a 12 months, my 20 years.
So the Buddha said, Yoja vasa satang chive, apasang udiyabhyang. That a life of 100 years, if one is to live 100 years without seeing the fast arising and passing of phenomena, if there were no sila, if the person did not keep sila, it would be even worse. But if there is no knowledge, if this knowledge does not arise, then it means also that there is no samadhi. So sila may or may not be there, but if not, if the person had no sila to quell the gross kilesas, and samadhi not present to quell the obsessive kilesas, no knowledge, then even though the person were to live 100 years, their life would not be as valuable as one day in the life of a person who practiced and saw udiyabhyana, the stage of the fast arising and passing away of phenomena. Just one life of being able, one day of being able to see, one day in the life of a person seeing udiyabhyana is better than 100 years of not seeing it. So the Buddha gave this a way to evaluate. And the yogis who have come here for 1 month or 2 months, some more, compare this with your experience. Compare honestly. Compare yourself with this honestly, seriously, not carelessly, and not favoring yourself.
Tambu approach Chivoli. Tiari Adolu, Nezon di Payo la Visology. Yada Golimia, Saya Visology, Chicken Epogo, the Rias for a Miluboli. Pay Adolu Shea, that is immediately 3 years, immediately 3 years, or through the lady Yazich in the Suravoli. Midaripo. Darimia Miabuzology, the Rule Sia Sharoma, Hello, same you must kiss it in Navoli. Jandare the Bobo, Kindamu cover, Karuna look over there. Two Jade Karuna relay Pillar, a demon Pitalo, 2 Jade Meta, 2 Jade Karuna Pillar. Daha you did the other Pokurima. The main body, singing the Aramu. And the other day, Yatwa Visolution. I told that Dinia Nevilo Volley. You meet Websay, to me at Websay. Beautiful, pure, Quinjonavi solution. Joshimishi. Chintane, Dinia Nebore. Joshi Malohu. A Joshi and Lohu, Timothy Chinian. Joshi Matin Low, Tema Lodava. That is Joshi Timothy Chintan at Dinia Po Yinchela. Italy a day important at the water. Go, Kawa South of Go, Taina, where the water. Go, Nilanja Taina solution to the Valley, so I am Yoto, to the Valley, a little Kawa South of Italy. China the Navida, the Valley, were 2 south of the water, Pola Date. Era Umias of Yaga, Teatrally, out of the Pocori. Chinate Payokavi solution Pinyaya Adana Rekando Para Rekati Tiari Atolo the only the other word Titavi solution Joshi Timothy Chinane Tipinyaga Unira o Adi Tipinyane Mimiko South out there. A shake out the sheep of South out there, Minion Royal. Tilari Mapia, Saint Sayadaw, Tension Doya, Joshi Matina Ribele, Malaya, Pogo South out there. Pinyaya Atana Recando, Coco, take the nine, attention shout down. Go take the South out there, never, but I recatted. To the volume Tigaya, Gawa South to left shit, Losore. The Karagama Kujina Dialia Pola, Chinatana Secretary Pola, Luci, Koti Macanoli. The Machile Canima Mouzo, Chinatana Video, Turbago, Sogama Chini, Yodi Jaunoma. Kujisa Diali China Mule Wena Kacharo, Edi China Mune Karunaya Pranrekanto, Atana Rekati China Mune to Rom Tigaya, Kawa Soshaya, Kawa Sosa to her Coco Leve, Tipinyane, Social Temida City, they call Navedma. Edero Ludato. Loga yi Pandibu Suragaro Logi Tapinyane Pandilumiabu Pisiozane Pandilumiabu Logi Uri Tetanelamiabu Yo Sinino Diane Lamabiezomu Egulo Dia Atutalo Coma Soari Piezomi Soloche Atinya ne Coco Mamaya Tenchoma Truvaleve, Techovida, Kawavida Chetama. Ginatanada Setia, Sanada Setia, Mialara, Ginatanamu Sanahuna, Truamtiga, Kawa Social Me. Kawa Social Yan, Coco, Maya, Techovida Chiti, Era, Myogo, Matake, Yinji Hulu, Uloga, my Yinji Hulu, Pionida, Pama, David Shilaba.
So how much value has been gained one can see for oneself. If one has reached this stage, then one will remember those one loves. One will remember one's parents or one's children, one's relatives, and one will want them to get this type of happiness. This is metta, the wish for the other's welfare. And one feels that, if they don't gain this happiness, then they will continue to suffer. And one doesn't want them to suffer. This is the feeling of karuna. It arises in a special way at this stage. To the extent that knowledge arises, very distinct loving kindness, metta, and karuna, compassion, arise. And these are true qualities, not false. When one practices also, one gains better understanding of how to weigh what is beneficial and what is not, what is suitable and what is not. Whenever one has the chance to act or speak, plan on behalf of oneself or others, this knowledge of whether the thing one plans to do is beneficial or not, and if that thing is suitable or not, one's ability to weigh this becomes more mature, and thus this ability brings one better protection than before. One can control oneself better. so that one does not cause any harm. So the Buddha said also, Penyaya atanang rekanto parang rekati, that with this knowledge of what is beneficial and not, the ability to reflect on what is beneficial and what is not, and what is suitable and what is not, this leads one to one won't break one's sila, and one won't let one's mind become full of kilesas. So one will just, because of this knowledge, one is able to protect oneself. One is protecting oneself with this knowledge. And in doing so, one doesn't harm others, parang rekati. One is able to control oneself with wisdom, and thus one protects others. And sometimes there's the feeling for other people, karuna, which arises, and then this is the idea that one understands how other people would feel if they were harmed. So this understanding arises, knowing how other people would feel, and so one doesn't want to cause that for other people. Thus, with this feeling of compassion, one protects others. And by this desire to protect others from being harmed, one also protects oneself. Karunaya parang rekanto, atanang rekati. So this is not something that can be manufactured, this quality, this personal quality. It can't be purchased. It can't be obtained through any type of material means. But when one practices, one gains this ability to control oneself. And so one not only has the ability to weigh what things are suitable and aren't, but one also understands how other people feel, and so one controls oneself so as not to harm them. And this is true culture, true civilization. In the world, what people call culture and civilization, what is commonly called, this has no meaning.
Mi ko bain ka ba le ngin chan bo wa tai yi ji ba le ko bain ka ba le ngin chan twa ma tu mya ko le be chin na tana ta ta ri ma po la be chu shi shi tin ma ti chin nai ne a ti nyan de po nai la be ko bain ka ba le ma ngin chan dai bu so lo shi yan le be da le ma piet song dai bu Pero Kuben Kavali Ninja Guru Tribuna Bavana Tiari, Atova. Atu Tilatamari Pina, Chintiari, Piso Mi Soluci, and Nezakona Uriabia Yamero, Yola Yame, to the Hola, Vito Nia Jala, Lupidala, you will let go, a tipina, take the nine age. So Ari Shila, go, take the nine, or Bala in the real yoga about it. I go take the name and a to me, a simple bit of Taro she and level to me a token video. Gina the Namus or Lepola. Gina the Namu, Mita Che Camilo, Gina the Namu Shida Bogoa. Sana Zeti, Shila Tapare, Kuti, Kanamuza. Kuti Makanaluji, to me a daughter, Kanamuza. Tanalida, Sana Zeta. Shana Zet, Shidante, Midaboli, Turbao, Kawa, Social, Matigaya. Mita Kruna, Turbao, Kawa, Social. Such a young neighbor to the valley material on low, Kawabida Pit. Take on and look there. There are people here and where, but my own poor Yechi or at Tama. We did Miala Lucy, Gwan Yisra, but my own to go in Yaya and I mean, go ye, don't go ye. A quick lady body. I mean, we put Yemi to Japan and take under Rema. So Pierre, we see a quick lady body who not got dinner to get Miala or lower. Pupin Japan and take under Jura, go no, so be on loan. Quick lady, the Panama Cuba and Quack. I did go by Quack and maybe the zoo of Quack body, I live here on low. Era poor Yachitoma Kovati. Davi Melo take under them a shitty shit, we say, superior quick later, ma. A Puga Pullman Dwaro, we sit on one, but with a lot of over there. Era the wop of Nala, bit of body. We Yashit had a covering, a quick clear body. We say quick clear of Piano. Tripta Pavana, Tia Atolushi, a good yoga, a chindi yada pare. It a good atolum appears on the level, no, Tilu. You didn't atolushi yavada. And the Kurachi, the cup of Lulu Miao. Mayome de Lulu Miao. Malay, Lolay, Milay, since I listen to Lulu Miao, that I know Atolumiao. Put a new jar time, Niga Sari, Tuntin Jaboli, Nipida, Titi Chaja alone in my yara, but teacher looks in Yava. The Telan Arto Peroma Miao. Tell her Shiva. Nala Atoloma, Gulu Udia Bianjamai. Maya de Usolation and Autocar, the low Ponzamure, Atolo, Penino Miavo, Ponzam Piala Mayama. Ero Coco, now Leviro. Mia Belu Chinese High Navy, High Navy, Low Navy, Lower Navy, Bianchibu Luare Bianchilu, Hawati, Twilushi, Solar Lucy, Tute Tomabe Luguati, Twilu, Pisola Lucy, Pitomabe. A two of you, Luguati, Manjamata Chilu, Lueman TV, Solution, Mankane, Nine. Go take people, Yichi, take me, Matama Babe. At a point to turning an hour, Ludima, Howard, logo, put them as a hotel time body. Saturday, let me bounce up it, Holo, Guru, Nala, they thought in the Panga solution, Nala Saka, 10 years of Mababe. Never got Jama, no says the Gali. You are a Dinia or Dave, Mazagali of Pavadino, 8 and Chusan and Javazelo. But what Tamboshi of Chusan and Javazelo? Tamboshi of Lone and Akuyishi on it. But what social Makanjava Nelo? Lupita on Chusan and Javazelo. A thing and a cocoa with social hero. To Ramatika on Leve, Kawa social Java. To Ramatika, Kawa social chain and cocoa level, social without jail. The Checo, the chapter, Nina Body, Chusa Atun and Javazelo. Lily in a Tatoin and Dinitia, some Talibare.
So, more important than making the whole world peaceful, first of all, is to make one's own individual world peaceful. So, when one has the ability to weigh what is beneficial and what is not, and what is suitable and what is not, the ability to feel. When one makes one's own individual world peaceful, one gains this ability to weigh what is beneficial and what is not, suitable and not, and to feel for other people, to put oneself in their place and understand how they feel. If one's individual world is not yet peaceful, then one needs to work to gain this, first of all. So one needs to practice the method of satipatthana. And if one reaches at least the stage of udyabbiya jnana, seeing the fast arising and passing away of phenomenon, then one will be truly human. And one has the ability to control oneself with panya, with wisdom. The power, this is what is meant by the word bala, or power, the power to control oneself. So when one is able to have a mindset of loving kindness and karuna, wishing for others' welfare, then one will be able to understand how other people feel. One will gain the ability to put oneself in the position of others, and so one won't want to harm anybody. So one will be able to protect others with one's loving kindness and compassion, metta and karuna, and therefore one protects oneself, controls oneself from harming them. So for oneself, this is very important to have a peaceful individual world, like a fresh oasis for oneself. And if there would be one individual oasis, and then another individual oasis, and another 2 or 3 or 4, many little oases in the hot desert, then if we have many, they can group together and bring relief. So first one has to work in order to create one's own fresh oasis, for oneself, and then for one's group, their first individuals and then collectively. This is important for the world. But now, because the world is extremely hot, there's almost no oases left in the world. So understanding this, if one practices and works to gain this type of peace, understanding this, one practices and works to gain this type of peace. And if one has not created this type of oasis for oneself yet, again, if one tries again, one can get it later. But one thing to be careful about is that one can't be careless in the practice. One can't just sit and think in doing the practice. One has to follow systematically the instructions. That is the only way one is able to create the oasis. So, although Sayadawgyi said, okay, if people have not gotten it this time, later on, it will happen. If one follows the practice, it will occur. But that only holds true if one works systematically and follows the instructions. So if one has practiced for 2 months already and has not yet reached the stage of udyabbiya jnana, then it won't make any difference trying again unless one changes the way one works. So one has to evaluate one's situation and see what is missing. One has to try to fill up what is missing, fill up the gaps. And if something is not being done correctly, then one has to make it correct. So that is what is most important, is to fill up the gaps in one's practice and to correct what is not straight. So Sayadawgyi has tried to show people how to do this with the Dhamma talks. And tomorrow will be the close of this 60-day, this 2-month retreat. So for today, this is all he wants to say, and may you be able to try to make your own individual oasis of peace. Don't settle for a loss. Work to make a profit so that you become a true human being with and develop special human knowledge. So Sayadawgyi hopes that you will be able to practice and develop the knowledge that will make you able to control yourself and protect others, accomplishing 2 things at the same time. He urges you seriously to work to do this. That's all for today.